On Saturday evening, we will begin the fast day, the festival of Tisha B'av, the 9th of Av. This is the saddest day in the Jewish calendar, and it's a day that traditionally remembers the destruction of both the first and the second temple. The destruction in 586 BC by the Babylonians and 70 CE by the Romans. It is a day of mourning where we kind of take all of our collective sadness for the suffering throughout the years and mark it on this one day with a 25-hour fast. Alongside Yom Kippur, it's the only other fast that lasts for that duration. And as we think about the temple destruction that took place all those years ago, we might question, why were the temples destroyed? We could think about the geopolitical situation that the Israelites were facing. Israel is a really important trade route between the north and south, Egypt and Syria. We might think about the way that the Israelites were behaving in relation to the other powers in the area and maybe annoying them slightly with their rebelliousness. We might think about all those geopolitical factors as the real reasons why the temples were destroyed. Part of global politics in the ancient world. But the rabbis didn't do that. The rabbis didn't want to think about any of those issues. And instead, as the rabbis do, they told us a story. And the story they tell us says that the temple was destroyed, the second temple this is, because of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. That's it. Two people are the cause of the temple being destroyed. And just to understand, Kamsa is a name for someone, and Bar Kamsa is a name that means the son of Kamsa. So we can see the similarity in the two names from the beginning. But it's their fault that the temple was destroyed. Although it's a little more complicated as the story goes. We read that there was a man who was friendly with Kamsa, but was enemies with Bar Kamsa. And he was having a big party, and he said to one of his servants, "Go bring Kamsa to my feast." That was his friend. The servant got things a little bit wrong and confused, and he brought Bar Kamsa to the feast. Once the host found out that Bar Kamsa was there, he was obviously very annoyed. This was his enemy, after all, who was joining at the feast that he was throwing. And he said to Bar Kamsa, "Leave, get out of here. I didn't invite you." And Bar Kamsa said, "Since I'm already here, let me pay for my food and drink. I don't want to be embarrassed and have to leave, and everything will be fine." But the host wasn't having it. He said, "No, you're my enemy. Get out of here." And Bar Kamsa said, "Look, I'm here. I'll pay for half the cost of the feast. Just let me stay. There's some rabbis here. There are important people here. That'll be nice." And again, the host says, "No, you need to leave." So Bar Kamsa makes one final offer and says, "I'll pay for the whole feast. Just let me stay." And the host says, "No, get out of here." And so he leaves. And Bar Kamsa, experiencing this, says to himself, there were rabbis there. There were important people there. Why didn't they say something when they saw the way that I was being embarrassed by this host? Why did no one say anything? And he was so upset about what had happened to him that he went to the Caesar and said to him, "The Jews are going to rebel against you." And the Caesar didn't believe him. But Bar Kamsa said, "Well, let's test them. Send them a sacrifice and see if they offer it up on your behalf." And the Caesar sent a beautiful ram, unblemished, as it was supposed to be able to be offered for a sacrifice. But Bar Kamsa got it en route and caused a slight cut in its lip. Enough of a disfigurement that it would not be kosher to be offered as a sacrifice in the temple. And so when it got to the temple, the rabbis debated, because rabbis like to debate. Should we sacrifice it or shouldn't we sacrifice it? Some of them said, we should sacrifice it because it's from the Romans, it's from the Caesar, and there'll be trouble if we don't. And others said, but if we sacrifice it, what will people say when they hear that a blemished animal was sacrificed at the holy temple in Jerusalem? The rabbis even thought, maybe we just kill Bar Kamsa so no one will know about this and we can get away with it. But eventually they decided, because of one Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulus, that they wouldn't sacrifice the animal because it was blemished. And when the Caesar heard this, the Caesar declared that the temple in Jerusalem should be destroyed. And so because of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, the temple was destroyed in Jerusalem. And as the rabbis continue to talk about it and interpret it, they offer further interpretations suggesting the temple was also destroyed because of excessive piety. Essentially, in our day, being a religious extremist or fanatic. That's another reason why the temple was destroyed. But ultimately, they suggest to us that the temple was destroyed because of sinat chinam, senseless hatred. The relationship between the host and Bar Kamsa, then Bar Kamsa and the rabbis and Bar Kamsa and everyone. Everyone got swallowed up and sucked up into this hate of one another. And because of that reason, the temple was destroyed. Not the Romans, not geopolitics, but hatred. And so as we read this story, as we read the rabbi's account of why the temple was destroyed, we might wonder, why this explanation? Was there really a Kamsa and Bar Kamsa? Did this really happen? And I don't think that's the important thing. I think for us, the important element of the story is the reason the rabbis wanted us to understand why the temple was destroyed. They wanted all of us to understand the power of senseless hatred to cause destruction. When there's hate, temples are destroyed, people are exiled, and bad things happen that thousands of years later we're still mourning today. It's a cautionary tale for all of us to think about the hate that we witness in our world. Most of it too, if not all of it, is senseless. And the rabbi's cautionary tale is one that on this weekend of Tisha B'av, we need to take hold of, to think about how can we combat the forces of hate. And while we have sinat chinam, senseless hate on one side, we also have senseless love on the other. Love for no reason. Love without cause or without claim on it, but love just for the sake of sharing love. In our popular society, maybe that's that idea of paying it forward, just doing something nice for someone else, not because they're going to do something for you, but just because it's the right thing to do. It's a good thing to do. It's a way to make our world better. And so on this weekend of Tisha B'av, there are members of the Jewish community who will be fasting for 25 hours, saying lamentations and remembering the destruction of the temple. I'm not sure how many of our community are going to engage with that day in that way. But I want to challenge each one of us to take Tisha B'av as a day to do something for someone else, to spread love, to share love for no reason. Pick that moment in your day on Sunday and just spread the love, share the love. It can be within your families, with friends, or with complete strangers that you don't even know. Perhaps for us all, that's the way that we experience and remember Tisha B'av this year. To share in the love, knowing ultimately that love will conquer hate, and that in that way, we'll be honoring the memories of all those years of suffering and doing what we can, not for the past, but for the present and the future, to ensure that there is no more sinat chinam in our world, no more senseless hatred around us. Shabbat shalom.